All right, now we're going to go over how to make the best drums in producing dubstep with Logic Pro stock plugins. So our drum pattern design is going to include a kick and then a snare / clap, which will be on top of another kick, and then the cymbals, which will be a crash cymbal, ride cymbal, hi-hats, and then drum fills. So either at the end of a phrase or in the middle, or if there's like a pause of everything else, we want to hear the drum fills alone. So first is going to be the kick drum. And we're going to use the Drum Synth here. There are other ways, which I'll explain, of finding a good kick just using Logic Pro stock plugins and Apple loops. But the Drum Synth came out a little while ago, and I actually really like it for kicks. The other stuff I think could still use some work, but I've been able to find some great sounds with the kicks. So we're going to use this heavy kick, and then we'll adjust some stuff. And then we are going to add some EQ. We're going to put some Bitcrusher on there, and not to change the sample rate, just to add distortion. This is my distortion plugin of choice. And then we're going to figure out our drum pattern with the kick. So I'm going to open up Logic Pro. And then I'm going to go down to My Templates, because we just made a template. So blank 150 BPM is the template we just made, so I will make that. Now, I'm going to go full screen, and when I said the thing about key earlier, I'm just going to change this because of the Apple loops, if we want to use an Apple loop later. I'm going to choose F minor. I'll explain why I chose F and a minor key in a little while. But for now, we're focused on the drums. So I'm going to create a new track, and I want it to be a software instrument. I want to choose the Drum Synth, and I will do mono because this is a kick drum. I don't need it to be stereo. If you were to do hi-hats or something else, you might want that to be stereo. So these are some presets that I have made, but I'm going to go over these from scratch. So I have my Drum Synth right here. I want a kick, so I'm going to go to kicks right here. And then for kicks, I have this. So I'm going to get my musical typing. So I'm going to hit Command K, move this up. So that's what I have so far. So to make this kick a little bit better, I'm going to adjust some of these settings. I'm going to leave the pitch alone. I'm going to turn the tone up a bit. So here's what happens when I turn the tone up. And I'm going to have it, let's say around maybe 30%, somewhere around there. It doesn't have to be exact. Okay, now I'm going to go over to the shape. Shape. Here's what happens when you mess with the shape. I'm going to do that about 33%, 34%. And then the sweep, what I'm going to do is have all the way up. So here's what the sweep is down. I kind of like that clicky, hard kick sound. And notice that it's taking a while for my bass to ring out. By the way, if you are not hearing most of this, you might want to get a better pair of headphones or better pair of speakers that you're watching this on and producing with, because you want to be able to hear the entire frequency range spectrum. So there's a lot of sub being played, sub bass. So that's the super low frequencies. Anyway, I have my decay here. My decay is way too high. So if I turn it up all the way, it's basically like that bass continues to ring out for a long, long time. So I'm going to bring this all the way down. And that's actually not that bad. And by the way, I apologize if you can hear my keyboard here. Anyway, but I'm going to turn this up a little bit, probably maybe around 10% or so. So let's move this up. Yeah, right around 10. Okay. And then I am going to beef this up a little bit within the plugin with some saturation. So 100% is way too high. We'll do like 10% there as well. All right, now key tracking is currently on, which means that if I play a different note here, you can kind of hear that scale and the actual pitch of the note. I don't really want that. Sometimes you can do that. Like if you were going to have the decay be super high, you might want that, but I don't want that to be the case. This is just my kick. I'm going to add my sub bass later. And so I'll go this back to 10%. And then when I have key tracking off, it does not matter which which musical note you hit. So all the same exact kick there. So that is all we're going to do now for the drum synth. Okay. And now I'm going to turn some EQ on. I just clicked this right here, but you can also just add an EQ. So if I get rid of this, I can do this and then go down to EQ. And then I almost always use channel EQ for just basic EQing. And then we will be using match EQ later and then probably single band EQ. But we'll do channel EQ for now. And you want to make sure that your analyzer is on. So I've made this my default right here. But I have the analyzer on. Okay, and then if I go down here, the analyzer decay is at 10 decibels per second. And yeah, so let me just show you what our kick is like. I just did Command K to get musical typing again. So that is the frequency graph of what's being played here, okay? And I like this kick because somewhere around 100 hertz, that is kind of where that punchy bass feel is. So if you've ever been to a concert or somewhere with super powerful subwoofers and you feel that like punchy kick almost at your chest, that is around 100 hertz. Now, I said that our key is going to be an F. So if you wanted to do some math, we could actually get that kick drum in the key. I don't think it really matters, but to do that, let me just show you how. So right now I'm on this Physics of Music Notes website. I often frequent this. It's some chart that I did not make, but I use often. I'll link it in the course resources. But if we go to F, the sub bass F that we will be eventually playing is this. So F1. Okay. So that is 43.65 hertz. Okay. Now, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, do not worry at all. This is not totally essential, but if you want, this can help. Now, the other F here is 87.31. So what we could do is boost around 87 hertz, and that would not only punch, because like I said, that punch is around 100 hertz, somewhere around there. So the punch would be a little bit lower, which is fine, but it would also be in key. Okay, it's not going to be a huge difference, but it's something that we can do if we want. So now that I'm back over in Logic and I'm playing my note, what I can do is take one of these right here. I'll move this to 87, and you can just type it in if you want. 87.3, and at 87.5 that's close enough. So I'm going to boost the gain right there, and I want to make this like range right here more narrow. So to do that, I will take this 0.6 and I will raise it maybe like that, and I will bring this gain down to 2 decibels. I don't want it to be like super ridiculous. If I made it super ridiculous, here's what it would sound like. You can just hear that like noise, that frequency, but I just kind of want there to be hints of that. So maybe I'll go back down to 2. Maybe I'll make this even a little bit wider. Okay. Now, another thing to be aware of is our lowest end of the kick. Now, in some songs, or tracks, I should say, the kick almost acts like the bass. Okay, there's no real sub bass, which is the super lowest frequencies that we can hear. That just is part of the kick. So a lot of like progressive house tracks do that. But in the bass music that we're making and the dubstep that we're making here, we're going to have sub bass below the kick. And I find it best to not have our bass be interfered with the kick drum. I like to have them coexist. So what I'm going to do is actually cut off the super low frequencies here. And we've kind of done that with our decay in the drum synth, but I just want to be a little bit more exact on what we're doing. So our lowest is kind of around the like 50, a little bit lower. And remember from our chart, it's 43 is the frequency for that F sub bass note, which we will add later, okay? And once again, if this is not really making sense to you, that's okay. But what I do want you to get out of this is that I want to cut the super low frequencies from the kick because we will be including bass there instead. If we had no sub bass, then one, this probably wouldn't be dubstep, but two, then you could have your kick play lower frequencies. But here, this is just what I found to be the best way to do that. So I'm going to turn on this low cut EQ. I'm going to turn up the slope, decibels per octave, to the highest it goes. And maybe I'll go move this around here. And here's what happens when I move it up. So maybe around like 53. So this is with the EQ off. You can hear a little bit lower sub. This is more punchy this way. All right, so I think this is great so far. So the next thing I'm going to do is add some distortion. And my favorite distortion, which I'm going to use throughout this entire track so many times, is the Bitcrusher. So to find that, you can go to Distortion and then Bitcrusher. So what you could do is actually use the like downsampling part of this. I'm just making this bigger so it's easier to see. So this is what it would sound with the downsampling. I almost never use that for this purpose. Sometimes when I'm actually making a bass, I'll use this downsampling. It kind of gets you that like yoy classic dubstep sound. But what I am using this is really as a soft clipper. So we'll be technically clipping this, which means that's what distortion is when like the audio clips right here. Okay, it doesn't let it go any farther than that. You don't need to know this. But what I'd like to do is give this some drive, and it'll make the kick sound louder without actually making the levels louder, okay? So it's basically almost like a hack, but it's not really a hack because lots of people do this. But it'll make our kick punchier without like ruining our mix later in the production. So I'm just gonna increase the drive a little bit. All right, so what I don't want is I don't want it to sound actually distorted. And that definitely sounds distorted. So 12.5 decibels is way too much. So let's see what this is without. So we're about 7.9. And I'm looking right here at the meter down here. So without any of these effects, I'm getting to minus 7.9. With the EQ, I'm getting to minus like 6.7. And since my clip level is 0, this should be 0 as well. So I can give this a little bit more boost. So let's say 8.5. Okay, so that's fattened up enough. And if we want, we can turn it down. Maybe 8. Yeah, we'll do 8 right there. Okay. So now this is pretty much it for the kick. The kick is pretty simple. It's really just fine-tuning the drum synth. I've tried these other ones. Don't love them, but you can try whatever you want. This is just a good kick that I've had. What I'd recommend doing is either saving this as a preset or saving this kick as a preset. So next time you don't need to go through all this trouble and create a kick. So if I go to settings, save channel strip setting as, I'll do heavy kick drum. Okay. Now another thing you can do is you can actually bounce this as a file and add it to your own Apple loops. So I do that a ton. If you look at my loops right here, I just often save a lot of random stuff, mostly drum stuff, but I also save other stuff too. So like right here, we can see I have a kick, some other stuff. Here's it. this kick is kind of similar to this one that we just made. I like the one we just made better. Anyway, so to do that, to add that to your loop, I'm going to create a MIDI region. I just hit Control click or a 2-finger click on the mouse pad to make our MIDI region. And then I am going to create a new note. And by the way, to get to this is the editor. One way to increase the efficiency of your production is going to be using keyboard commands. So I use keyboard commands all the time. I apologize if I don't say exactly what I'm doing with them. But to get to the MIDI editor, you just hit the key E. And then to make a new note, I'm going to hit the command button and then just click. And since my keynote tracking right here is off, it does not matter what note I pick. And I'm going to just extend the length of this note so it lets it kick out. So I'm going to hit E to get rid of that. And then what I'm going to do is Control click that and then bounce in place. So heavy kick drum, new track. We'll leave the source. And then normalize, you can do on or off. It doesn't really matter. I'd recommend doing on just to get the most out of each one of your samples. It's just if your sample is quieter, it'll make it as loud as it goes without clipping. Here it's not going to change anything because we're already basically at 0, which is the loudest we can go without clipping. So I'm going to hit OK. So now here is our drum. So if I close this out, same thing. Okay, but what I can do is add this to my Apple Loops library. Heavy kick. This is a one shot because it's a drum. And you can pick this. I don't really care about this stuff because I typically just go to my loops when I want to find the ones that I do. And then I will go create. So now when I go to my loops, I go to, let's see, heavy kick drum. So now instead of going through that entire process, we can just drag this kick in to our next track that we want to do. And since we don't have a key attached to this, you can use this in any key. You can use it in any style. It doesn't just have to be dubstep. So that's just one great way to use the kick drum and then try to make your process more efficient in the future.